You know, it can be a challenging time being a teacher with some of the things that they want you to teach these days. Seriously. It can be a challenge being a student who is like, that's not what they said in church last Sunday. And it is. And I think that God's sovereignty is something that we count on, and we should count on way more than we do. I don't usually read a lot of verses off of my phone, but in Job 42:2 it says this: I know that you can do all things, and that no purpose of yours can be thwarted. That is the God who we serve. In Lamentations 3:37 it says, the will of the Lord alone is always carried out. We serve a mighty, mighty, mighty God, and it should never question the abilities that he has, the purpose that he has, the mind that he has, the heart that he has, all at exactly the same time. Why do we act like a 2-year-old sometimes trying to claim that we're the boss and he's not? Why do we sometimes act like a 13-year-old teenager and try to claim that we're the boss, not him? Why is it that when we get our driver's license, we think that we are the boss and we have all freedom in the entire world? And then we move out and we call our parents for advice. Or is that just you guys? I want you to know that there's a guy who was a part of my youth group growing up, meaning he and I were in the youth group at the same time. His name's Randy. And Randy had a strong Christian background. His grandpa was one of the great pastors in Stockton, really was. His name's Harvey Larson. Pastored a church up on Lower Sacramento Road. He has one of the most incredible hearts for people I ever met, ever. And his prayer life was, there's a Harvey Larson prayer and then there's a John Hathorne prayer, okay? And let me just tell you, they're like not in the same category of life. It's like Jesus was sitting right next to him and he was praying always. His mom and dad split up when he was growing up, and as his mom and dad split up, his mom got married to a man who was the music director at the church. And man, that guy loved to sing. And Randy loved his stepdad. And Randy loved his grandpa. And there's this element of faith that's a part of his life. And at 12 years old, something happened. A kid down the street introduced Randy to alcohol. And so he started drinking. 12 years old. Started doing some drugs at about age 13. And as an 8th grader, his life has already kind of taken a little bit of a mess. As he graduated from high school, he always had a really good job. Now I'm 63, Randy's 62, okay, right now, and so back up. He was making about $85,000 a year as a 22-year-old. Okay, he was doing pretty good. That if you equate that now, we're talking he was probably making about 160 to 180 now, okay? You get the idea? He's doing fine. Everything looks great because Randy's got a first-class job. Randy always made it to work. But from the time work was 2/3 done to the time he woke up in the morning, it was chaos because things were out of control. And Randy kind of walks away from his faith, and he just starts living the way he shouldn't, and he's making a lot of really crummy decisions. And I didn't see Randy from the time we were about 20 until about 27. And at 27 years old, Randy comes to my office at church, and he said, John, he goes, my life's a mess, and I want out. I said, what do you mean you want out? He goes, I want a life like yours. I said, oh, man, I don't know if you do or not, okay? But I said, what's going on? He said, John, he goes, I've had an alcohol and drug problem, mostly drugs. He goes, I spend an average of about $65,000 to $75,000 a year on drugs. He goes, but I look good because I got a job. He said, John, let me tell you everything I own in the whole wide world. This is blowing me away when I'm hearing this. He goes, John, I own a skill saw, a fishing pole, a pickup that doesn't run, and a cooler, and a couple of lawn chairs. maybe 5 sets of clothes, and a chest of dresser drawers that's missing a drawer. He goes, that's all I have to show for my name. He goes, man, I make a lot of money. He goes, but life is a mess. He's trying to get out of this life, and he said, John, he goes, I want to serve God. And I said, Randy, I said, you need to make some changes here. And truth is, he was living with the gal, and he didn't even like her, okay, but it was a free place to stay. That's the truth. He goes, I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. He goes, I don't know which way is up anymore. And Bev and I had a daughter at the time, only one, and our daughter was about 4 months old, 2 years old, something like that. And I said, what, you guys don't make those kind of mistakes? All right, let's just say she was 3. It doesn't matter to me, okay? Anyway, I said, Randy, I said, you can come live at our house. I said, you can stay there until a certain date in June. I don't remember what the date was. And I said, you can live at our house. And he says, are you serious? And I said, well, you don't want to move home because you said your stepdad's got too many rules. And I said, it's kind of humbling at 26 years old to do that. I said, but you can come live at our house. I think it was about 8 or 9 weeks, something like that. And I said, on this certain Saturday, I said, you got to be gone. And I said, because Bev and I are going up to we're going to a children's camp where I'm going to be the speaker, and then I'm going to Hume Lake. And I said, and that's just the way it is. And I said, I just want to share with you 3 things that helps our family function. And I said, and I want you to live by them. And he goes, oh, you mean like the family rules? And I go, no, rules are words for kids. These are traditions that make our family function, Brandy. He said, well, what are they? I said, number 1 is this. I said, we eat dinner as a family at 6 o'clock. I said, and if I can't make it, I need to tell Bev as soon as possible. She's not wasting her time getting ready for dinner. She's not expecting me. And I said, it's just gracing her with the idea that's a time we value, and it's a valued effort that goes into it. I said, so that's 1. We eat at 6 o'clock every night. I said, second of all, I said, if I have any place to go after dinner, and I didn't tell Bev about it beforehand, I said, that is rude, and that is selfish, and that is only thinking about me. That's not thinking about us. So if you want to go someplace after dinner, I need to know about it before you go. And he goes, what do you think, I'm a kid? And I says, hey, I'm not the one who's desperate right now. You are. And he looked at me, and I said, I'm serious. And I said, Randy, I said, you work for a company called Manpower, which is a place where they call you every day and give you a place to go work for the day or for a week or whatever. And I said, Randy, now this is pre-cell phones. I said, Randy, I said, so if you just take off and you go to somebody's house and you don't tell me where you are, how am I supposed to call you when Manpower calls our home number and let you know? And he goes, oh, yeah. I said, Randy, you're not thinking right anymore. You're just not thinking right. I said, the third is, I said, we go to church on Sunday mornings as a family because we want to. I said, those are the 3 stipulations. I said, do you have any money at all? And he says, yeah, I have $75. I said, I need 50 of it right now. Why? I said, because if you break any of these things, I said, the locks will be changed, your few little things will be on the front porch, and I'm using your $50 to change the locks. I said, I will not even discuss it with you ever because I love Bev way more than I love you, and I love my daughter way more than I love you. I said, but I love you. And he said, sounds good. We went to church. He abided by this the whole time. We had all kinds of fun. Randy is a great cook, okay? He made hash blocks instead of hash browns. You guys ever had hash blocks before? You should have been at our house. We had them several times. You guys ever have lemon broccoli? You know, you put a little bit of lemon in, okay? He poured the whole bottle in accidentally because he was on the phone, and we had lemon and broccoli, okay? It was pretty rough. Make a long story short, he goes to church the first Sunday, and after church he says, John, he said, I'm ready to go home. And I said, oh, Randy, I says, I forgot something. I says, as a family, I go, we value the interaction of people, and we value Sunday school. And he says, you mean I got to go to Sunday school? He goes, can I borrow your pickup? I said, you can borrow me in the pickup the entire time you live here, but you cannot borrow my pickup. I said, because you've not earned that responsibility of freedom yet. He went to Sunday school. He comes out. He goes, John, I met a girl. I'll make 2 long stories short now, okay? He ended up marrying this girl a year later. Um, he is a leader in his church. He walks with God greatly. We never had any challenges the entire time. It is creeping close to this date that he's supposed to move out. And I'm like, man, I'm not going to bring this up. I'm just going to put it, I will. Bev goes, you're going to talk about it? No, I will put his stuff on the porch. And I will change the locks because he needs that lesson still. And it was Friday. It was the day before. He said, John, he goes, I was wondering if I could borrow you and your pickup tomorrow. He said, I'm moving home to Norm's house. Norm's his dad, stepdad. I said, I thought you said your dad had too many rules. John, he goes, there's not a lot of things in life that I've learned from looking at you over the years. He goes, but I've appreciated your friendship. He goes, but I learned in the last 8 weeks that traditions make families function well. And he goes, I think that's all Norm ever wanted. I think all he ever wanted was for us to function as a family. I didn't understand that his authority was not a dictatorial authority, but I thought it was. He absolutely loves me as a stepdad. And I said, sounds to me like you came to a good understanding of who God is as well. And he says, yeah. Make a long story short, I think Randy began to understand something about who the boss is. You know, we live in a world right now where the internet is a lot of people's boss. Artificial intelligence is a lot of people's boss. And social media, popular opinion, is a lot of people's boss. Because of their quick access and their availability, they're gaining incredible popularity. And I'm not an expert on these things by any means, but I decided that this morning I wanted to spend just a brief little sidecar for a second, okay? In the last 2 weeks, I've understood a whole lot more about what artificial intelligence is than before. How many of you, are there people who have not even heard that term before? Okay? If you don't know what it is, if I was a high school student right now, I literally could say this to artificial intelligence. Write me a term paper about something, and it would print out a term paper for me, and I could go turn that in. You know what that's called? Plagiarism. You know what that's called if I were to do that from the pulpit here? It's called plagiarism. You know what that would be if Tom showed me this. I'm communicating with Tom yesterday over a text message. He said, John, he goes, how is artificial intelligence going to affect us as a church? And I said, I don't know. But I do know that the real question is about our hearts. Intelligence is not the main issue. Submission to God in our hearts and in our minds is really the key issue. And just for fun, he typed in, write me an introduction for See a Victory. It's this beautiful thing. And I said, Tom, if that's not from your heart, I know that you would never share it. And he goes, no, I wouldn't. And I said, it's a tool to use to find out some information, but it will never replace our heart, and it will never replace our will, and it will never replace our intention to lead a congregation of people that says, we love you, Lord, more than anything in all the world, and our heart before you is what is absolutely most important. And I just wanted to stand here and just tell you that it is our desire to not take shortcuts with the preparation of God's word. It's not to take shortcuts in the preparation of living and being faithful here on the platform at the church. And Justin's committed to these very same things. We will be students of the word. We'll be obedient to the word. We will share the word. We will not be copy and paste leaders. We will not be print and read presenters. As we gain insights from things like these personally, we will share them. And we'd like you to remember and know this: plagiarism will not be okay from this platform. It won't be. Because if we're not sharing what is happening, and it's not happening in us first, we're sharing from over here. We're not sharing from the God who is, the God who was, and the God who always will be. Are we going to get some ideas from some of those things? Certainly. And we'll give credit. I just wanted to say that. Why am I saying that? Because artificial intelligence will never be my boss. The God of the universe will. And that's such a big deal to me. I just wanted to take the time to share that, okay? Father God, may the rest of our message today, as we talk about who the boss is, about who our sovereign God is. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be pleasing unto you. Amen. I believe the question of who is the boss is one of the greatest ever. We struggle with that in our homes, okay? We struggle with that at a restaurant when we're having problems with somebody, like, should we talk to their boss? And then you find out they are the boss, and it's like, that's not very good, okay? We live in a life where a church where, you know what, I'm not the boss here. God is, and then our session is. I value our elders. I value their input. I value their love for the Lord. I value their walks with Christ because they simply are setting a pace that allows me to be who I can be and allows our staff to be who we can be. I remember well listening to a group of people try their best, and over a short period of time, this one guy starts to take over. And right in the middle of that, some guy says, "Hey, who died and made you king?" You guys ever heard that kind of thing before? Okay? It makes us wonder just who is in charge. There's a movie called Hidden Figures. It's got one of the greatest little things, a clip. It's about 1 minute and 2 seconds. And I want to play this for you because there are 3 obstacles all taking place at exactly the same time. One is an issue of males and females. One is an issue of pyramid authority, and the last is about men and women, okay? Let's back it up and start over, okay?
To attend today's briefing.
Why is that?
Well, sir, the data changes so fast. The capsule changes, the weight and the landing zones are all changing every day. I do my work, you attend these briefings, I have to start over. Colonel Glenn launches in a few weeks. We don't have the man figured out yet.
Why is it she can't attend?
Because she doesn't have clearance, Al.
I cannot do my work effectively if I do not have all of the data and all of the information as soon as it's available. I need to be in that room hearing what you hear.
Pentagon briefings are not for civilians. It requires the highest clearance.
I feel like I'm the best person to present my
You're not gonna
calculations.
let this go, are you?
No, I am not.
And she is a woman. There is no protocol for a woman
Okay,
attending
I
these
get
meetings.
that part, Paul. But within these walls, who makes the rules?
You, sir, you are the boss. You just have to act like one, sir.
Protocol for women attending.
Is that incredible? We're talking about a world of time. If you aren't familiar with this movie, it's called Hidden Figures, and it's a story about the African American ladies who really had an impactful efforts on the whole space program taking place. We're talking about ladies in a man's world. We're talking about the Caucasian world and the non-Caucasian world. We're talking about simple authority of structure, top-down things. And simply put, that question asks this: who makes the rules? I believe Jesus Christ, God Almighty, makes the rules. Who's the boss? I believe Jesus Christ, God Almighty, is. And there's this incredible passage as we've been going through the book of James that helps us understand this, okay? Because we really want to know where authority comes from, and we want to know who makes the rules. Would you read this simple little passage with me? It's just 2 verses. This is from James. This is James chapter 3, verses 11 and 12. There is only, chapter 4. That was, remember the number thing I messed up on earlier? There is only one lawgiver and judge, the one who is able to save and destroy. But you, who are you to judge your neighbor? There's only one lawgiver and judge. We have the same slide in there twice. Did I copy and paste the wrong thing? That's my fault. Yeah, let me read it to you. Sorry. I copied it and pasted it, and then I got rid of the wrong part. It goes on to say this. Oh, you know what? Missed the first part. Brothers, do not slander one another. Anyone who speaks against his brother or judges him speaks against the law and judges it. When you judge the law, you are not keeping it, but sitting in judgment on it. There is only one lawgiver and judge, the one who is able to save and destroy. But who are you to judge your neighbor? You know, so many of us want to be the God of our own universe. And many people have a warped view of God. One of the views of God that people have is that he's this old man getting older all the time, and he's becoming more and more irrelevant to things like technology, more and more irrelevant to things that are happening in today's world. He doesn't understand NASCAR, doesn't understand new football rules, doesn't understand baseball, doesn't understand futsal. Some of you are going, what's futsal? It's a combination of football and soccer. And there's just this idea of he is irrelevant now. He used to be good. He used to create the universe. He used to be this incredible being. But we have Google now. He used to help people, but we have doctors and counselors now. He used to do miracles, but I like magic shows and trick photography more than that. He just isn't as important as he used to be, and I don't need him anymore. That's some people's view of God. Here's another view of God, that he's a butler. He's simply waiting there to meet every need that we have. When I need something, he's supposed to take care of it. When I want something, he's supposed to know it before I want it. And there's a need for him to help me with everything that I need. And therefore, I will be a CEO Christian, meaning Christian and Easter only. Because there's no need for him except when I need him. His job is to make my life easy, to make my life comfortable. My wish is my command, and he will meet it. That's some people's view of God. Here's another view of God, is that he's this sheriff up there with this big thumb, and he's basically ready to say no to everything. God says no, God says no, God says no. He finds joy in shutting down my desires. He doesn't really like me. He's there to condemn me and point a finger at everything that I do wrong and to step on my toes at all times. He's on a horse whose name is guilt, and he just loves riding around and around and around, powering on guilt to me. One of the greatest things that this passage points out is really, who do you and I say that God is? Who do you and I believe that God is? And I believe he is the greatest father that ever existed in the entire world. Now, the problem is that some people come from homes that don't have a dad. And some people come from homes that have an absent dad. And some comes from home that have an abusive dad. So when we say the word loving father, they have no idea what that means. And it is a concept that they are fighting, going, I don't want him. But you know, there's dads that are like super dad. They ought to have an SD on their chest. A super dad is the one who's there when they're eating dinner. He's there when their kids are going to bed. He's at the games. He's bringing this enjoyment to life that is absolutely phenomenal. And yeah, he's bringing forth some correction. But his correction often comes by telling live stories of what happened at work. And he's talking about overcoming evil and overcoming struggles. You see, we have a lawgiver who loves us when he wrote the laws. There's three truths about God that come up over and over and over again. And when we understand that he is the lawgiver, this is so important. The first one is this: we can trust him because he is in control. That's a relief. Anybody ever had a teacher who, like, they get fired up and they start lecturing and they just go on and on and on and on and on? And you've lost, like, you already said that like 13 times ago, okay? They're not in control. But the point is, God is in control, not the Philistines, not Pharaoh, but we can trust him because he's in control. We can also trust him because he knows what is best. Think about the fact that he's in control and he knows what is best. When you put those two things together, you begin to realize, he's got the ability to put my best interest in mind. The third thing is that what he's like, and when you put them together with the other two, it just blows your mind, and that's this: he loves you. And he loves me. Think about this for a moment. If he was in control and doesn't love us, we're a robot. If he's in control and doesn't love us, he's going to ruin our lives and control them as opposed to giving us the free will of choice. If he knows what's best but has no control, we're going to be squirrely and all over the place. If he loves us but doesn't want what is best, he might spoil us instead of help us grow in responsibility. You see, in verse 12, it simply says, he makes the rules. This God who loves us and is in control and knows what is best, he is the one who makes the rules. And that's why they are good. That's why they are livable. That's why we can enjoy them. That's why we can rest in the fact that they're going to work. Why does he make the rules? What gives him that authority? Because he made everything. Do you know he made a place where things can happen and allowed time to be able to exist so that it could happen in it? Think about that for a second. What if he would have just created time? Who'd be living there? What would be happening? What if he just created matter? Where would it go? What would we do with it? God is incredible. Would you say that? God is incredible. And follow up with this, because if there's one thing I want you to walk away from today, it's this. He's the boss. Would you say that? He's the boss. Think about the rules he made. In the beginning, it was just one. Don't eat from the tree. Oh. Think about this, okay? I'm just being transparent here for a second, okay? If God would have said never eat donuts, I'd be in trouble. If he would have said never eat, what would you be in trouble with? You know, then to help us out, all he was really saying in the beginning was, obey me. Just obey me. I know what's best. I got this great place, and all I'm asking is that you just listen to what I'm saying. I know what's best for you. It is not a good idea for you to know everything in the whole wide world. It's not. And then to help us out later on, he gave us these two rules. And the two rules were, love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your mind, and love your neighbors as yourself. And then there was a period of time where he gave us 10 rules. There was 10 opportunities to break. It's pretty bad. You and I have many limitations, but I want you to know that his rules work together. He knows why he made them. There's historical evidence that shows that obeying his rules and living by the traditions that he has set will make our lives much more peaceful and much more enjoyable. He knows why he made them. There's a man, his name's Mr. Greg. And Mr. Greg is the second grade Sunday school at another church in town. He's been teaching Sunday school in that class for 42 years. Does that guy deserve a button or what? On his wall in his room, there's one rule. It's 3 words. Don't be rude. He believes that every action whatsoever possible for a second grader falls under that one rule. Don't be rude. He said, it's rude. There's a little bathroom right next to his. He believes it's rude if they just get up and go to the bathroom. Therefore, he said, no, don't be rude. I'm imitating him right now, if you didn't know that, okay? He believes that talking out of turn is rude. He believes that not listening is rude. He believes that not answering a question when he says hello is rude. His whole classroom is built around this one little rule. I go, Mr. Gray, I go, do you explain this rule? He goes, oh yeah, I explained it the first day of Sunday school and the second day of Sunday school and the third day of Sunday school. He says, I start out by saying this, you're in second grade now. How many of you guys have ever heard the word rude before? And then he says, you're almost in third grade. He's saying this in August, a year before they're in third grade. You're almost in third grade, and you do not want to be a rude third grader, and your mom and dad do not want to have a rude third grader. So since we're almost in third grade, we're going to start right now by not being rude. He says, because we are all going to follow under God's command, and God's Bible says we're not going to be rude. That's just a little warm-up to the whole thing. And then he gives about 30 examples of what it's like to be rude. And he has fun acting them all out. And the point is this, is that Greg understands something, and that's this, that God's law was written with full knowledge. God's law was written to never be changed. God's law is eternal, and God's law is still true today, and that being rude is really, really what Adam did in the garden, what Eve did in the garden. They were rude to God. They were rude to the Father who created them. You know, one of the things that this passage points out, it says this in verse 12. The one who is able to save and destroy, he has the ability to keep us accountable to these rules. And some of us don't like that. I've never been in the military, okay? But I've watched MASH, and that's not an imitation of the military, okay? But in MASH, they aren't acting like real military people, okay? In fact, they're making fun of a lot of things. I do not really have any idea what it would be like to be in boot camp. How many of you experienced boot camp? Okay, from what I understand, it's just, hey, it's like being on a merry-go-round. Pretty easy. It's absolutely, there's a fear that's in a lot of those young men and women. What's the fear? That guy in front of you's got a voice, and that guy in front of you knows the law, and he really is the law. And that guy in front of you has the entire army's best interest in mind the way he's treating you right now. That's really what it is. I have a really good friend who went into the service, and he spent 30 years as an Air Force pilot. Happens to be Pastor Fred's son. And I saw him after boot camp, and he goes, I hate boot camp. He goes, the guy told me to stand up straight. I was standing straight. I didn't need anybody to tell me to stand up. He says, all the guy needed to do is say, Steve, would you please stand up straight? That's all the guy needed to say, and I would. He goes, but the guy next to me was an idiot. He said, and because he was an idiot, we were all idiots. And he goes, and I was tired of being reminded every 6 seconds that this guy could yell and that he was the boss and he could keep us accountable, because if we didn't, he was going to threaten us and he was going to follow through because he didn't carry word, because the entire Air Force needed to work together. When we understand that God can keep his traditions, that God can keep his rules, and he has the power to enforce those traditions, that gives us a better understanding of the great authority that he has. But that authority, you have to go back to this. That authority says he knows what's best, he's in control, and he loves us at exactly the same time. Here's some examples. You guys are familiar with Noah and the flood? He exerted his authority to keep people accountable. You guys familiar with Pharaoh? He kept his ability to know that he could enforce those things. You ever heard of the Philistines? Okay? You ever heard of the Pharisees? You ever heard of the Sadducees? Hey, God kept his plan of keeping accountable to the authority that he had by instrumenting discipline on all of those people. He has the insights to know our motives at the exact same time. He did that with King David. He has the knowledge to know why we did what we did. In verse 12, it points out clearly that he keeps us accountable to those rules. And in verse 12, it also points out the fact that he adores us as he's doing that. It says, the one who is able to save and destroy. So the first part was the destroy part. The second part is the save part. How do I know he adores us? Because when I was growing up, my dad was a school teacher, and he actually left every morning before we got up because he was a dad who was committed to doing all of his work at school. And when he came home, he was a dad. It didn't matter, you know, I think my dad left at 5:30 in the morning, okay? And he helped open up Hamilton Junior High. And he would come home, and he'd be pretty tired. And I'd say, hey, Dad, you want to play catch? Absolutely, John, let's go play catch. I didn't know my dad was tired. One day my mom said, you know, you want to play catch with your dad every single day. He goes, you think he's tired? I go, but he's dad. I want to play catch with my dad. And you know, I thought about it one time, like most of those times was only maybe 25 or 30 throws. Think about that. Pete, that's not a lot, is it? Hey, but he made me feel like I was super important. He just took the time to spend. He coached my little league team. I don't know if he was a good coach or a bad coach, but he was the coach of the team. My dad was there when we had meals. My dad took all the kids on our block. There were 33 kids on my block that were within 2 years age of me. He took us all to the park one night. And he goes, I'm going to teach you guys how to throw Frisbees. And this is unbelievable. My dad brought 4 trash can lids. How many of you know where this is going? I'm going, Dad, what are you carrying those? Dad, you're embarrassing me. Johnny goes, these are giant Frisbees. I go, no, they're not. They're trash can lids. And you're going to make a fool out of me. I just want you to know those babies fly pretty well. And I want you to know that the next night, about 20 of those kids are at our house. Mr. Hathorn, will you take us down and play Frisbee with us with the trash can lids again? I'm like, I live in the best house on the block. You know what? He enjoyed us. He adored us. Every summer for about 8 summers in a row, my brother and I and my dad went camping, and we would go camping twice every summer, the 3 of us. And one time I would bring a friend, and one time my brother would bring a friend. And if it was me, and if I brought a friend, my friend and I spent most of our time together. My dad spent the rest of the time with my brother, and vice versa. And he literally sacrificed for us. Yeah, he had some rules. You've probably heard this before. He says I got more spankings than the other two brothers and sister added together. I know he knows how to discipline, but he adored me. He helped me with homework when I did it. He was simply there. He really was. He was simply there. I remember he told me once, he said, your mom can't go to sleep when you're out of the house, and she won't go to sleep till you get home. I'll be asleep because I don't worry about you. He goes, I know you're okay. He goes, but if you want to wake me up and tell me hello, I'd be happy to say hi to you. That's the man in our home who had these traditions and had these rules, and he had these hard things, but he also adored us. It made all of those things go together well. And when we understand who God is, we want to put our life in submission to him. I think that many people have not understood all 3 of these things about he makes the rules, he holds us accountable to the rules, and he adores us all at the same time. Much like we often have missed the idea of he's in control, he knows what is best, and he knows that he loves us. I'd like to read you a quote from Denzel Washington. I'm going to do this tonight. Tonight when you go to bed, will you put your slippers under your bed so that when you wake up in the morning, you will find yourself on your knees in awe of the God that made you? He goes on in this thing to say this. He goes, it's a great place to say you're sorry. It's a great place to remind him of who he is and to remind you of who you are. It's a great place to say thanks for what he did yesterday. It's a great place to say thanks for what he's done and what he's going to do today. It's an incredible place to say that you praise him for his grace and his forgiveness. And it's a great day to ask him to help you honor him today, because he is the God of the universe. He goes on to say this in another video clip that I watched, and it's this. You know, the demons believe that God is the lawgiver. They just don't act like it. Maybe we could be different.